And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. Today we'll be talking about Sunspot 2796. Scary versus scary looking. And I'll be saying, "Oh my GOND!" repeatedly throughout the broadcast. I apologize for the pace if it goes a little on the fast side here, as there are too many things to talk about, including a new Sunspot 2796, UFO documents, and more. So there's Sunspot 2796. And the leading umbra shrunk, the trailing umbra grew. Otherwise, it's not particularly organized or large. But following 12 sunspot-free days, we've got a new sunspot group. So not likely to produce any large solar flares. There's the full disk view. And let's talk about scary versus scary looking by going out to Lagrange point 5 where stereo A is located. There's a diagram of that for you new viewers, stereo A. And here's how you can make a thing that's not scary at all look very scary. So this is a difference image here at stereo A, and this is some kind of it could be a cosmic ray strike. It's more likely a solar wind strike from something like a coronal hole wind stream, for example. That's the difference imagery. So, and the reason that looks that way is because it got slightly brighter at about 1040. So if you pull the frame up from 1040, right there, it's 1038 and 36 seconds. 1009 and 35 seconds. That's that frame there, and you can see nothing exciting showing up at all on the regular imagery, and that's because it's a difference imagery. And this is part of the reason why if you show people stuff that they have no idea what they're looking at, you might be able to make it look very scary and spooky, and you might even get them to say, "Oh my GOND, oh my GOND, what's happening out at stereo A?" And the answer is not much. There is a little lost data though, so I just figured I'd cover that real quickly. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux still at 73. So ultimately we see weak levels of activity on the sun. I still say there's a coronal hole wind stream on the way, which should be here within about 24 hours from making of this video. There's the 1-year chart of the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, a measurement of the outer solar coronal radio emissions. So here you can see none of this is forecasted on NOAA. There's Space Weather Prediction Center there. And I don't really understand why that South Pole oriented coronal hole should have a solar wind on the way. But in any case, there's the NOAA forecast. Today it differs from ours. So we've got some great HelioViewer movies. Much better than this one. This one's pretty uneventful. But here's a great set of imagery of Sunspot 2796. And you can see its magnetic field migration process. We won't zoom in any more on that as it's not that exciting. Great Earth scale included in that one also. And we're going to show you some close-ups of both of those coronal holes, those North and South Pole oriented ones. And you can see the sunspot in between them. Does this point to some sort of a relationship between coronal holes and sunspots? Probably. We'll get to it later. And thanks for leaving a comment. Tin Man 1057. Good morning to you too. Allow me to put this fire out. There we go. And the Smash News Network carries on. Not engulfed in flames. Make sure you follow us on social media and don't forget to press like and subscribe if you're viewing the video on YouTube, as the Smash News Network needs your views in order for things like basic survival. And please bear with me a quick moment. Thanks for leaving a comment. Precious slights, and good morning to you too also. And let's get back to the browser, as it has survived the recent hiccups. So today's Smash Lights segment will be all jumbled together with the cosmology segment. We're not going to separate it at all. It's a Saturday special. Thanks to our subscribers over on Twitch, twitch.tv/smashamash. Perhaps grab the mobile application for Twitch. You'll see when we go live that way. Also, we do have exclusive videos on YouTube, youtube.com/smashamash. There are playlists there and so on, other stuff. We recently uploaded another Smash Hole of the Week episode. We had to redo the COVIDiots. And so here's a quick little tidbit on that. We redid the COVIDiots. And welcome to the year of accountability, by the way. Here's a tiny clip. Misrepresenting the number of deaths from COVID. I'll just leave it right there and not add anything else to that. Because here at the Smash News Network, we prefer objective information. So yeah, we redid that video as YouTube took it down and gave us a strike warning. So we didn't get a strike, we got a warning. I don't know if that's a badge of honor or if it's just a pain in the you-know-what. But in any case, Least Busted Name in News has yet to receive a strike. Follow me on Twitter also. You'll see exclusive content there, retweets, and so on. I don't know why I've got a second tab open for Twitter. I'm trying to have less tabs open. So yeah, check out our playlists on YouTube, etc. By the way, regarding U.S. senators, who votes for these people, much less trust them to legislate? Last I heard, isn't the approval rating of the U.S. Senate at like 16%? Now, the reason I made that particular meme featuring the latest Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barry is because one of the, what is her name? Hiroto from Hawaii? The Hawaiian senator asked her some of the most ridiculous questions I ever heard in my life. She asked her something like, have you ever, or would you ever, or did you ever request sexual favors? Did you perhaps finger one of your interns? Did you put your hands up the shirt of one of your friends while in other courts at any point during your career? And anyway, that's why I made this Alta meme. And if you haven't seen our memes, perhaps you haven't been to smashomash.com/forum. There's an entire section in there devoted to that. By the way, this Joe Biden one, I made it in 2018. Yeah, I've been known to see the writing on the wall. And I would remind our space weather viewers that Dr. Fauci committed fraud and admitted it to the New York Times. If you weren't aware, go check out the meme. We've also got exclusive content at BitChute and so on. Check out all of our social media sites. You can find all of that at smashomash.com. And let's get to the cosmology segment as it's complicated. Before we do that, we'd like to thank our patrons, the true source of funding for the content, patreon.com/smashomash. Thanks, patrons. Please consider becoming a patron and help increase the probability that these videos will continue to exist, be free and publicly visible. Don't be a freeloader on YouTube. Open up your moldy, cobweb-encrusted wallet and send us a few bucks per month. Today's random quantum number, which we've been generating to figure out what astronomical objects to look at, today's is 945. We pre-did it. And on the Neil Gorell Swift Bat X-ray Observatory, that's Alpha Vulpeculae. Yes, Alpha Vulpeculae. That's quite a mouthful. Here it is on Aladdin. And I'm not sure which wavelength that is. Does it show up in Chandra? Is it an X-ray emitting star? Apparently not. Let's check it on the 2-mass. There it is on the 2-mass. Alpha Vulpeculae. Oh, it's a beryllium. I forget what AE stands for, but it's got some kind of a special low metallicity, I believe it is. Let me check here. I think it's a low metallicity star, if I remember correctly. It is a red giant. And it's located at a distance of about just under 300 light years. It's on the red giant branch. It's believed to be about 11.3 billion years old for some reason. How does that figure into the age of the universe? Anyway, here are the X-ray emissions from ER Vulpiculae. If you want to follow those yourself, head to the Neil Gorell Swift Bat X-ray Observatory. It's entry number 945, today's random object. And let's talk about some unidentified aerial phenomenon. Have you heard about the massive data dump by the CIA? Well, you can find it at the Black Vault. You can download the entire 1,000 pages. You can get it in the CD-ROM form, or you can get it in PDF form. And we've brought up another one of these letters, one from 1958. On February 5th, redacted from support, redacted, case redacted, closed. As he promised, Leon Davidson sent a copy of his article to the Pentagon. They sent it to us without comment, and we sent it to Colonel Grogan, Special Assistant to DCI, with remark that we did not see that anything could be done about it, and he agreed. Reference last sent of your, what is that, TWX? We do not want any business with Davidson. If he wishes to contact the agency, he already knows enough names. We do not see that any purpose will be served in giving him any more names or addresses. In addition, it is felt that we would only encourage more speculation by him if we were to contact him again. Gee, speculation by a guy named Davidson, who would have ever thought? To offer him a new channel if he should contact us. So there could be overriding reasons in the future. We do not want redacted involved in this mess. Sorry to leave it with you, but the only purpose which would be served by other action would be to get your office off of the hook by involving someone else in a matter which we want no involvement. Approved for release back in 1978, I think it was. So again, you can find all of those on theblackvault.com. Massive data dump there. There you can see it's actually 2,780 pages, the CD-ROM edition. And here you can see some of the PDFs right on the website, which is where we took that from. You know what? I actually missed page 2 there. How did I not check page 2? And page 2 must be redacted because I see no page 2. That is strange. So, let's talk about Venus real quick. Now, I have forecasted in the past, while screwing around on a playlist called Scrying with Smash, that Venus and Mars would switch places, and of course, I meant orbitally. I was joking. But in some ways, Venus has supplanted Mars as being the most likely planet in the solar system to currently have life on it. And there's an article here on phys.org in the Astronomy and Space section about different spectral analyses. Now, the Soviets landed 2 spacecraft on Venus back in the 1980s, I think it was. And so, anyway, somebody's doing some new spectral analysis in 6 different wavelengths about the surface of Venus. Soviet landers in the 1970s. So, yeah. And anyway, Venus is a very interesting place, to say the least. My favorite planet besides Earth. And let's talk about another thing showing up in the news, the Magnificent Seven. A bunch of local neutron stars that are all within 120 to 500 parsecs, so within about 1,500 light years from the Earth. A series of 7 neutron stars, originally first noted in 1992 and confirmed as a, quote, neutron star, end quote, in 1996. And you'll find articles about them as their X-ray emissions are being used as a basis for which to prove that they're surrounded by perhaps axions, otherwise known as dark matter. I don't want to get too in-depth into that discussion, that debate about dark matter, as it's not really in the wheelhouse. I just wanted to cite the fact that here's one of those objects, RxJ1856.5-3754. the first confirmed neutron star back in 1992 of the Magnificent Seven. And we've brought up that area, as there is no light to be seen from that. It's just an area of darkness. But there it is in the optical spectrum there. And it looks like there could be some jets emanating from this. Perhaps there's a pulsar wind or something going on there. I have no idea. Here it is on the 2MASS, and you can see it looks like perhaps both of these areas are somehow associated. That was a terrible drawing. I apologize for that. Perhaps both of these areas are associated with that. They look like orientational jets, perhaps. How far away that is from the actual target, I have no idea. But you can find those on... This is the Sinbad. You can also find them on Aladdin Light. Sorry, this is the Sinbad. There's the Sinbad. Anyway, many of you may have heard me say, "Oh my GOND," as I take pretty serious subjects and I screw around with them on the regular because there's no reason to freak out about it. But in any case, I'm sure you've probably heard me, if you're a regular viewer, say, "Oh my GOND." Why do I keep saying that? Well, this right here is the holy symbol of a Dungeons & Dragons deity called GOND. Why am I talking about this? Here's a preview. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with GOND, GOND is a lawful, neutral, really boring deity that you'll find around city areas, and you'll see guys that look like this building things, building machinery, water wheels, and all kinds of other manufactured devices. GOND is the holy maker of all things, and that's why I make fun of GOND so much. Well, check it out. You notice some similarities there with yeah, you see what I'm saying. Oh my GOND, the Gateway Foundation is in the process of building parts for that. Does that make you say, "Oh my GOND"? What are these areas here? What are these little gears out here? What's that all about? That's where you would be if you were on this orbiting space station, which would use centripetal force to create artificial gravity. Yes, you've seen it in movies. Well, they're building a football field-sized piece of this. And I believe it's in February. And it's going to be built in a ridiculously fast period of time using robots. As for an object this large, you have to build large portions of it in space, as we can't launch anything as unwieldy as a giant space station like that. Expected to build a football-sized section of it in just 90 minutes. So perhaps you may want to read about that. If you weren't aware, it's on universetoday.com. And I think that's today's cosmology segment. If that wasn't enough information to jam into your brain, I don't know what could be. But too much stuff happening in one day is no excuse to not cover it. Next, looking at the real-time solar wind, which is all screwed up. And yes, I've changed the background color and so on to make it more pleasing to the eye. We've been seeing all kinds of hiccups in this in the past couple days, and frankly, I have no idea what the real-time solar wind might be. Sometimes the one-day graph works, sometimes only the 7-day graph works. And there, we've got it. We've got most of the one-day data, so cheers. I guess that was just luck. Current solar wind around 5 protons per cubic centimeters. Current solar wind speed 330 kilometers a second. And again, I'm expecting an uptick in this in the next 24 hours because we should be seeing a coronal hole wind stream arrive in the next day. Maybe 2, I'll say up to 36 hours. We should see an uptick in the solar wind density from a South Pole-oriented coronal hole wind stream. Next, look at geomagnetism, something we do daily here at the Smash News Network. And the current KP index, a measurement of overall global geomagnetism, is currently at 1 for the past 6 hours. Here's a visualization of geomagnetism. It's the Space Weather Modeling Framework. It's a geospace magnetosphere movie, and it should show 4 hours of data, if all is well. And you can see that weak solar wind there, the main pressure in the magnetotail region, as the more significant portions of the solar wind blast past the Earth and create more induction in the magnetotail than in the bow shock, the part of the planet facing the sun. Here is 4 hours of data of ground magnetic perturbations, zooming into a little bit closer to what you may call home. And please leave us a comment if you're viewing from another plane of existence, solar system, universe, galaxy, timeline, etc. This is 4 hours of data of ground perturbations, and we see some over the Canadian North Pole, as well as out in the southern Indian Ocean, where the south geomagnetic pole has migrated, less so over the Siberian North Pole. Here's a 3-day graph of the proton flux, and this one's measured by the GOES-16, around 300 kilometers up. And we don't see very many protons. No surprise there, no major coronal mass ejection strikes. We almost saw a B-class solar flare, but not quite. Probably came out of that Sunspot 2796. And it occurred just a couple hours ago there, while I was doing show prep. Here's a 3-day chart of the GOES magnetometer. Another feature of the suite of instruments on the GOES-16. And for you new viewers, the N's and M's, they stand for noon and midnight, local time for the GOES-16. Here's some more data. First, let me check the life of the stream here before I show you the top view ecliptic plane field plot. That's not easy to say. Now, this data is 2 hours and 5 minutes old. You can see the Earth is moving into the North Pole-oriented current sheet. In fact, it probably already is. And you can see no potential field force line shown here. There's no orange line showing from the Earth to the corona. An indication that we've probably snapped into the North Pole current sheet, which looks very narrow. And so it may be time for a little bit of magnetic indecision happening. Don't be surprised to see very spiky readings on the GOES magnetometer as a result of that. The Earth will probably snap into a South Pole current sheet by tomorrow, assuming no other changes happen, and they can, as the magnetic environment can suddenly change with absolutely no warning. So there you can see that South Pole coronal hole, which we'll show you close-ups of later in the video, as well as the North Pole-oriented one that's rotating in now. So 2 coronal holes in the process of rotating through, a second one in the south, and a sunspot very close to the edge of that South Pole-oriented coronal hole, actually. And here's just another line-of-sight field plot, and you can see the sunspot must be just behind that coronal hole. Do you have an opinion that there's some kind of a relationship between coronal holes and sunspots? If so, let us know in the comments. Here is a magnetic field plot of the sun's atmosphere, a turbulent place indeed, and we can actually see some closed potential field surface source lines there on the north. You can see those lines in pink. Lots of open potential field surface source lines from the South Pole-oriented coronal hole regions. Those would be the black straight lines coming out of the bottom. The south poloidal field of the sun. Next, we've got a star chart, and it's actually light out where I am. If you're up before dawn, you may see Venus, the third brightest object in the sky. And here's where planets are. There's where we expect them to be in a week. Next, we're going to talk electrons, and we don't see very many electrons up there. No charging hazards for satellites. There's the 1-year chart. You can see how low on a 1-year basis the electron flux is right now. And the forecast is for it to drop even lower. And I would agree with this forecast here, again, because I'm expecting a coronal hole wind stream, which typically craters the electron flux. And there's a 3-day chart of the electron flux. You can see we haven't reached into warning levels for an extended period of time. There's a 7-day chart, in case you wanted to see that. And remember, folks, the GOES-16 is making its measurements up here at the F ionosphere layer. Allow me to Vanish. Check the life of the stream. Thank our Twitch followers for leaving comments once again. And get back to the graphics. Here is the Electron content forecast. This will show you where GPS errors are likely to be occurring. And we see larger amounts of anomalies with a low electron flux than a high electron flux. In other words, the electrons get a little disorganized at lower levels of electron flux. Leave us a comment if you have a theory on that. Perhaps that's a job for Eugene Bagashov. And here's just another image to give folks an idea of the altitudes of things. It shows you GPS satellites, which are in between the Van Allen belts, actually outside of the inner Van Allen belt and inside the outer Van Allen belt, if that makes sense. And the low Earth orbit, where you want to be if you go to space, where the International Space Station would be, and where you could say, oh my GOND, on a centripetal gravitational space station. We still see some outages here, as reported by PowerOutage.us. About 25,000 in Washington and Oregon. I mean, in Washington and Idaho, still out of power. Here's the ionosphere layer. And that's a 24-hour animation. Once again, we see some anomalies here in the southern hemisphere. Surprisingly charged up in the south here during southern hemisphere summer. How is your summer going? Our viewers from UNDA. Here's the latest image. That one from 12:30 Universal Time, and we are very late. Let's speed this thing up and rattle off volcanoes. What's erupting, you ask? Well, Kluchevskoye is. It's producing a 20,000-foot ash plume. Suwanosejima is. It's producing an 8,000-foot ash plume as it explodes. Semeru exploding as well. 18,000-foot ash plume there at East Java. Popocatépetl exploding, 20,000-foot ash plume there. Fuego exploding, 14,500-foot ash plume there. Sangay exploding, flight level 200. It's a 20,000-foot ash plume. Revenador exploding, flight level 160. It's a 16,000-foot ash plume. And Sabancaya. Continuous ash emissions are a great reminder to not attempt to pole vault the caldera. We need the views on YouTube. We're looking at a very shallow quake here. And when I say shallow, I mean, I think it's 1,400 meters above sea level out here near Mono Lake in California. There's Mono Lake. That was only a 2.8 magnitude, but check out the depth. 1,400 meters above sea level. Let's see what else has been shaken. And it looks like a small uptick in earthquakes here, although no large quakes. One that did some damage in Iran, likely. We'll get to it. Deep quake in Japan. So nothing quite over a 6 magnitude here. Here's a 5.9, though. I think that might be the largest of the past 24, taking place in Guatemala. So a little bit of an uptick there. Let's take a look at the location of that one. And that's probably somewhat of a populated region. Let's take a look at the aerial spectrum. And it looks pretty unpopulated. I stand corrected. And it looks like there's actually mountains between the mainland, which can insulate against volcanoes. I mean, against earthquakes. So some activity kicking off in Central America, as well as in Oceania. And again, we saw a significant quake in Iran. We're just going to let the list scroll up here. There's a deep quake in Western South America, one of the world's top deep quake locations. And here's this 5.5 in Iran. And that's located in a very desolate-looking region as well. Check it out. Some serious desert there. Here's the topographical map. And I know nothing about the geography of Iran, so I'm going to move on. Here's a deep quake at the Philippines. Another shallow quake 300 meters above sea level in California. A 5.1 in Indonesia. So a small uptick here in earthquakes. Here's a deep quake in Alaska in the Aleutians. A 4.4 magnitude at 207 kilometers. Another shallow quake at California. That one's 600 meters above sea level. Also near Mono Lake. Are there volcanoes happening in California? Are those magmatic quakes? What is up with that? Here at SNN, the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, we want to know. It's near the Adobe Valley. Perhaps there's some great photo editing software there. 5.2 at Tonga, 4.9 at Papua New Guinea. So a bunch of deep quakes. Here's another very shallow quake. 2,200 meters above sea level. This one occurring over 6,000 feet of altitude, folks. So that's a significant... It's on the slopes of Antelope Mountain right there. East of Antelope Lake. So a bunch of quakes there to the southeast of Mono Lake. And they continue. There's a 3.2 at 900 meters above sea level. What is up with that? Is a giant sandworm from the movie Dune burrowing through the mountain. Here's a deep quake at Japan. And let's move on to look at jet streams, as we can't hang out. Lots of things to do today. There are the jet streams of the Eastern world. And here are the jet streams of the Western world. The jet stream once again splitting in the central Atlantic, sending some chilly air down toward St. Lucia. Isn't that St. Lucia? I think it's St. Lucia. Anyway, those are the jet streams of the Western world. Here's some more meteorology stuff. We don't see any terrestrial lightning on the GOES lightning mapper. Let's check the real-time lightning map at lightningmaps.org. Who, by the way, does not endorse or affiliate these videos in any way. Anyway, there's the current lightning situation, pretty calm. And here's the Doppler for the U.S. And we see that rotating low pressure system is now around western Ohio. And it's easy to see in the Doppler map. Here's the snowfall forecast. This is the current snow depth. We're looking at a snow depth map. And here's the Euro forecast for snowfall till 1 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. So that's 1 p.m. Euro forecast for snow depth. We'll zoom in a little bit more on the snowy parts of the U.S. Not that much. And that should give you some idea. Again, that's the Euro forecast. Here's what's going on in the cloud layer. And you can see that low is right around the Indiana-Ohio border, I would say. Here's a water vapor map, which will give you even additional insight. And you've got this band of dry massive air here stretching down from Lake Huron to Mississippi. So there's probably a string of clear sky in there where you'd have very interesting cloud features. And if you're flying a plane across this, you would see turbulence at that spot. And then you would feel like you're flying off a cliff. You'd be flying off an atmospheric cliff. All right, let's get to the bonus features and close this thing out because we don't want the video to be too long. We'll show you the solar intensitygram to show you the latest high-res image of Sunspot 2796, as well as its magnetogram. It's time for me to vanish. There's the colorized magnetogram. There's Sunspot 2796. The trailing North Pole umbra, shown in blue, still looks pretty organized. Here is the close-up and intensitygram. And we can actually see some penumbra there now. Not very much. It's not a particularly well-defined sunspot. Here are the additional close-ups that we have. First, we'll show you the full disk view once again in 193 angstroms. So there's the full disk view, large coronal holes associated with both polar regions and a small sunspot in between. The coronal holes are pointing right at that sunspot. It's a perfect setup for a daily space weather presenter. Here's a close-up of the North Pole region. Great view of that coronal hole, and we'll get even more extremely close. That's quite a significant coronal hole there. Here's an even closer view with Earth scale. Great view of that area. Lots of protons emanating from that zone. And here are some close-ups of Sunspot 2796. Here's 94 angstroms. One full day of activity there. Here's 131 angstroms. This one, like 94, takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2. That's 94 and 131 angstroms. Take 10 images per minute. Great view of that in the extreme close-up. Here is, this is 211 angstroms. This is one of the wavelengths that shows coronal holes. It's one of the ionized iron states. And I think we've got 171 angstroms. Another state of ionized iron. A crowd favorite, a perennial crowd favorite. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, no matter how much the government drives you to drink. And if you do drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Please visit our links and support the channel. May that solar wind be at your back. And it's coming.